Let's answer. There's two questions I wanted to get to. Let's go to Alex's first, right before Deft Hands, because he had his in there first. So he said, "Do y'all think PulseX or Pulse will be more valuable token in the long run?" I know we agree on this, but definitely Pulse for me, Ewok. Now, when you say long run, Alex, obviously there's different time horizons, but we're really just going to focus on this actual cycle. So by the end of this bull run, sometime maybe in 2025 or something like that, I think Pulse certainly does better than Pulse X in this bull run. And to kind of answer then just directly Deft Hands question, off of the bottom, I'll just give you off of sack rate for Pulse's performance. I mean, we've talked about this and given our kind of predictions before. Again, predictions are kind of useless. It's better to look at a range. But yeah, I mean, I think 100x for Pulse off of the lows is generous, actually. I mean, I would think off of the sack rate will probably be over 200x or so for Pulse. And then since this kind of answers Alex's question too, I think Pulse will do two. Look at the ratio right now between Pulse and Pulse X. I think you'll see Pulse do that much better than Pulse X, basically, which has been 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1, or something like that so far from Pulse X to Pulse. So, what do you think on those accounts, Ewok?
Yeah, I think we're right in there. He's calling 0.007 as his top for this cycle, I think, right?
Nah, he missed 2 zeros, actually. I think he's trying to say the bottom of Pulse was 0.0007, which
Right.
is what it has been. So I think that's what I see what he's saying. Yeah. So he's saying, so that's what the price would be.
Yeah,
For
so
that.
7/10 of a penny is what he's calling as the top, I think. So
yeah, you're right.
If I'm reading that correctly, I could see that. I think 100x is fair in the first cycle. You know, it's going to be. It's really going to depend, I think, on Ethereum gas prices. If they get out of hand, I think we're going to be more favorable on PulseChain. I think more people will migrate over. If they do something to keep the fees somewhat normal, I don't see as much success right away. Like I said, I mean, nothing wrong with PulseChain at all. It's amazing. It's fast, but the fees are what are going to help us. There's no doubt about it. If Ethereum stays affordable, people they're not going to migrate. They don't want to learn new things. It's hard enough to get people to learn new things and check things out, because there are so many scammy things out there. So gaining that trust, and Richard has done a pretty good job, and the Hexicans have done a pretty good job of remaining steadfast to what we have, and trying to teach the good word of the things that Richard has kind of taught us. So, there's not that much. Well, I don't. The right way to say it is, it's really. I think it's just going to depend on the gas fees as to how successful we really can be on this first cycle. Now, after the first cycle, I could see things. As you said, things may come to a little bit of a screeching halt. But for PulseChain in the second cycle, I could see it doing extremely well if it's around for another cycle, especially because, you look back at Ethereum and see what kind of gains did it do in its first cycle. I forget if it did 100x or a 200x. We know it's done over a 10,000x in since it's 6-7 years now that it's been out, but it didn't do all that in the first cycle. I think it might have done 100x, 150, 200x, whatever it was. I'm not looking at any statistics, so I just kind of throwing that number out there. So I think that's probably a pretty reasonable estimation. Now, with PulseX, it's going to really depend on how much business PulseChain gets, because obviously that buy and burn function is going to be so massive as far as price appreciation, and the more tokens get burned, the more valuable it really becomes. It's still just It's got better tokenomics than Uniswap. I'll say that. It's not just a duck take Dawn token.
Right.
There are,
Exactly.
so there are a lot of game theory things included in it. It's going to have better appreciation. But yeah, I still think in the long run, Pulse probably will outperform PulseX. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But good thoughts. And I like some of the stuff that's in the chat. Alex followed it up too with like, what is a good stack to kind of have for both of those tokens. I mean, it's all relative. I mean, it really depends on what your goals are. Are you trying to just make a million this cycle? Are you trying to make a million in each one of your Pulse bags? What's your starting capital? And I'm not asking you at all to answer any of those questions, Alex. I just am saying rhetorically to anybody. But what I put in there, and I've seen data on this. I saw Westcott Crypto tweeting about it. Sami has certainly talked about it a lot. But they've both talked about, and many others, but they've talked about like roughly what the, what league statuses may be. So turtle, squid, whatever, if you're familiar with that with Hex. Right now, roughly anywhere between, I would say, 110 million and 150 million Pulse is probably going to be in that squid level, which is a significant level. I'll put it that way. So, and then for PulseX, you're looking at a higher number, obviously. So probably anywhere from like 180 million PulseX to 250 million PulseX. I'd say those two numbers, you're probably comfortably in the squid league for each of those. If you don't know what that stuff means, maybe you're familiar with like the Staker app and stuff for Hex. I know it's kind of weird, but those would be good levels to be at, I think, to do well this cycle. And then you just got to hold after that. So, yeah.
Keep buying more. Keep buying as it's low. You're going to look back and say, man, I wish I would have. If you don't. So DCA what you can. And, I think you're going to be fine. And try to earn more. There's don't get crazy. Don't get crazy and do risky things to earn more. Don't put it into weird things promising, yield that you're, may not get. You may not get any of it back. So just, be smart, hang on to it. That's half the battle, is hanging on to what you have, and trying to accumulate a little bit more in the meantime. Just don't risk it.
Definitely. And so many mechanisms too. We're going to see downturns that'll make your stomach churn a little bit here. We just did a couple of weeks ago in this ecosystem because a lot of it is new, obviously. But that's why it's so important to be earning more along the way. You can earn more Hex, obviously, by mining it. You can earn, we just talked about liquidity providing for Pulse and PulseX. Everybody's forgetting about Hedron and Icosa, which credit to Crypto Coffee just had on Crypto Sloth and another guy the other day, kind of revisiting that stuff and the crazy amounts of yield you can make with Hedron and Icosa staking. So all that stuff is out there. Use it. I'm definitely doing that right now too.